If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. This post made on 4chan in May of 2019 presents the concept of a never-ending, bland-looking maze commonly known as the Backrooms, a place with an infinite number of levels, each one more terrifying than the last, a place home to creatures unlike any found in our world, a place that is inescapable. And in January of 2022, VFX artist Kane Pixels uploaded a horror short based around the Backrooms to YouTube, the beginning of an hour-long series with its own incredible narrative. So let's go through the series and discuss the story from beginning to end. This is Kane Pixels' Backrooms. The first video, Backrooms Found Footage, begins with the sound of a loading VHS tape before displaying footage of teenagers who seem to be creating a film. We know from the description that this video takes place in September of 1996, hence the VHS footage. The dates of all these videos are always found in the description, and we'll be using these to create a timeline. But back in the video, the cameraman is told to back up to get a shot, to which he falls over. We then get our very first look at the Backrooms, which for the sake of this film was created entirely within Blender. The handheld feel of the camera was entirely animated precisely to match the movements of a real person, and after landing here, the cameraman begins to wander. Around a minute in, he hears something and turns around, to which we briefly see a strange figure, possibly the arms of a creature lurking the halls. The cameraman misses the creature, however, and carries on walking, to which he discovers a crack in one of the walls and a room with a ladder leading to a hole on the wall. As this is the first room to contain something different to the others, the vent-like hole feels almost inviting, like it wants you to enter it and see what lies ahead. And after doing so, we begin to see arrows pointing the cameraman in the direction of a certain room that contains a plethora of disturbing drawings along with text reading, "Don't move, stay still." We know from the very first post about the Backrooms that it is entered if a person accidentally no-clips out of reality in the wrong areas, meaning that it is possible that humans have entered these rooms before, and that these drawings are warnings for future victims. It is when trying to read these messages though that the cameraman is interrupted by a loud sound, to which he turns around to the sight of a creature running towards him. The creature itself seems to have 4 limbs structured similarly to a human's, however it is incredibly tall and thin, unlike anything we've ever seen before. The cameraman then begins running, occasionally turning around, to which the creature is always closer than before. Eventually he reaches a room which is blocked off, its only escape being through a hole in the floor, and with no other option, he jumps down, surviving the fall. He then walks into another level of the Backrooms. I mentioned this briefly in the beginning, but the Backrooms consists of an infinite amount of levels, each one creepier than the last, and each level having a different chance of survival. In short, there is no real end to the Backrooms, as there is no consistency with how you travel from one level to another. You could be at a level in the thousands just to find an entrance that leads you back to one of the first. You really are stuck forever. And according to the Backrooms wiki, which I'll be referring to for quite a lot of this video, the cameraman has entered level 188, a level titled The Windows, and upon entering he comes across a strange building that resembles that of a hotel, and surprisingly is actually a real hotel in London, England. But you wouldn't expect it given its incredibly strange architecture, giving a similar vibe to that of a liminal space image. And at this part in the video, if you listen closely, you may hear a familiar sounding song.
Holy shit.
If you don't know, the sound playing is actually Minecraft Disc 13, which weirdly fits the video perfectly. If you were alone at night trying to watch a newly released horror film and the creator tried to slip the Minecraft disc sound in there somewhere, you'd be incredibly thrown off to the point where it would ruin the experience. But this is different. The song fits in so well with the eeriness of the film that I didn't even question it the first time I watched it. And this is a great example of the small details that the creator manages to slip into the series. The cameraman then walks into another area just as unsettling as the last, with hardwood floor making his footsteps noticeably louder than they were before, and a waste management bin pushed up against a wall, a strange object to be present here as there seems to be nobody around to use it. We then see him turn a corner as the ambient sounds get louder and louder, to which he sees an entrance to another area which is separated by a large drop in the floor. We then cut to a quieter place containing a long corridor and a fire exit that, upon opening, takes the cameraman right back to the first level. And after doing some roaming around the area, this happens. The camera then cuts, to which we see the cameraman hiding, and after finding a gap in the wall we get our best view of the creature yet, its movements being completely unnatural to any sort of animal. And just as he thought he was safe, after falling down the hole, the camera itself seems to have no-clipped back onto Earth as it falls from the sky, eventually hitting the floor. The cameraman himself is not present during the falling, meaning that he likely didn't escape. And that's how the first video ends. But before there were any more publicly posted Backrooms videos made by Kane, a link to an unlisted video was posted in the description of the first Backrooms video, which is titled March 11th 90 archive.tar. And here is that video. The video itself consists of a slideshow of images being displayed alongside calm, whimsical music. The images themselves are of liminal spaces, large open areas that look weirdly familiar and are completely isolated from human life. The backrooms themselves are their own type of liminal space, as they are completely empty and hold a strangely reminiscent feeling. We also see images of people who have had their faces censored in post. These people are shown either researching or operating machinery as if they are grouped up and working on something. And one person who is looking through a window at the backrooms, staring as if he is waiting for something to happen. Then we see another image of the backrooms with a highlighted area titled Null Zone 4 alongside some text that reads, "Due to the elevation discrepancy between panel 225 and 234, a small KX field is created." We are then shown one more image before the video fades out. The next Backrooms video that was uploaded was titled Backrooms, the third test, and was another slideshow of images, this time overlaid by text-to-speech, talking about the event involving the Backrooms that happened in 1988, 8 years before the found footage film was recorded. The voice states that a large group called the Async Research Facility tested their own low-proximity magnetic distortion system. However, the public are yet to know of what happened during this investigation. It also says that the reason the Async are so interested in the backrooms is because they want to use the infinite amount of rooms for storage and to house people. They want to use the backrooms to help others, which in turn would save billions of dollars for the government. The voice then stops talking, and we see this. This seems to be an attempt that the company are making to create an entrance to the backrooms. The video then ends abruptly and we are on to our next one, titled Backrooms First Contact, which takes place in 1989, a year after the third test. The video begins with a little introduction revealing to us that this is test number 6. We then get a glimpse at what looks like technology that was manufactured for the tests or for the Backrooms themselves. Then we are shown a list of modifications they have made to the test in order to improve it, one of which has been censored for unknown reasons. Then for only a few frames, backwards text appears on screen that when flipped reveals what looks like a code and the word failure 3 times. This code, if you can even call it that, when googled seems to relate to nuclear physics. Specifically an experiment documented by the European Organization for Nuclear Research titled the Alice Heavy Ion Experiment. The ALICE, an abbreviation for a Large Ion Collider Experiment, is described as a dedicated heavy ion detector designed to exploit the physics potential of nucleus-nucleus interactions. There's so many archives of information about this experiment, but to dumb it down, I believe that this means that this async company had access to this technology and attempted to use it, however it was unsuccessful, hence the word failure being shown on screen alongside the code. We are then also shown what I believe is the result of the failed experiment by async. It seems that the experiment's failure resulted in a portal to the Backrooms being opened. Based on the reactions of the people conducting the experiment, it seems that they never intended on opening the Backrooms, and it's possible that they had no idea it even existed before this event. However, it's unclear as to whether this was intentional. Perhaps they fully intended on creating a portal to the Backrooms, but that's something we'll have to find out later. The video then ends, and in the description we find ourselves a link to another unlisted video titled Collateral.mov.
I'm Ted Koppel. There has been a rather strong earthquake in Northern California, so strong in fact that it has, among other things, knocked out all the power, or much of the power, at Candlestick Park, where the third game of the World Series was being played. But in the overall scheme of things, that may be the very least of things that has happened today.
This is footage from the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake in San Francisco, as explained by the news reporter. And although this video seems out of place when thrown into a story about the Backrooms, it's when you look closer that you realize its meaning. You see, this earthquake took place at exactly 5:04 PM on the 17th of October 1989, which seems unimportant until you realize what else happened at that exact same time. The opening of the Backrooms. So, this tells us that the Loma Prieta earthquake was likely caused by the experiment that Async conducted. The opening of another dimension and the force required to do so caused a huge earthquake in California. Then, Kane posted a new Backrooms video titled Backrooms Missing Persons, which begins with the display of many missing persons posters found in various places. One of the people shown being only 2 years old at the time of their disappearance. We are then shown a graph showing the reported number of missing persons from 1987 to 1992, and starting in 1989, the number of missing persons skyrocketed to more than double what they were in previous years, with no signs of slowing down. The video then mysteriously cuts to footage of 3 people in yellow hazmat suits wandering around in the Backrooms. These people likely being associated with Async. They then continue walking until discovering a room containing 3 holes and something below them, which after walking closer, they begin to realize that it is the dead body of a human. The cameraman remains staring at the corpse for a while until the video cuts, displaying 3 black and white images on screen, followed by more backwards text that when flipped reads, "If anybody, blame him." And that's how the video ends. The next video uploaded is titled Backrooms Informational Video and begins with what seems to be a video created by the Async team that would be shown to members of the company before they enter the backrooms in order for them to understand what they're doing and how to be safe. The information is being read out by text-to-speech, telling us the many different names given to the backrooms, which include the machine, the door, the back rooms, the complex, and hallways. The voice then makes it clear that mention of the backrooms outside of the Async facility is prohibited, as the outside world is yet to learn what the backrooms are. The video then glitches and cuts to Regulation 5, skipping a lot of the previous precautions that need to be taken. The voice tells us to never enter the backrooms without guided supervision, and that no less than 3 experts should enter the backrooms at a time. Then we cut to a timestamp telling us that the next clip takes place on the 29th of February 1990 at 11:36 AM, which doesn't seem unusual until you look closer and realize that since this was on the 29th of February, 1990 must have been a leap year. But it wasn't. This is intriguing because it's obvious that this date was picked on purpose, and it's not the only time in the series that there are irregularities with time itself. But we'll speak more about that later when we begin discussing the theory surrounding this series. For now, back to the video. We then see 4 individuals entering the backrooms to begin exploring. Then a little over 2 minutes in, the cameraman makes the terrible decision of wandering off on his own, and that's when this happens.
Hey guys, can you hear this? Hey! Guys. Guys. George. Open!
The cameraman is then seen panicking, frantically speed walking in an attempt to make an escape, and it is then that he discovers another strange area that contains fences and some debris in the middle of the floor. The video then cuts and the cameraman is seen pacing towards another area that is completely pitch black until he turns on the flashlight, revealing what looks like another level of the backrooms. He enters the area to find an axe, some wheelbarrows, and a strange building resembling a barn of some sort. The video cuts once more and we are back in level 1 when the cameraman stumbles upon a structure that was likely built by the Async facility. He then begins to enter the room, probably hoping to make an escape, but that's not exactly what happens.
Hello? Hey!
The recording then stops and we are shown a diagram of the backrooms until the video ends. An important thing to mention is that we actually have a link between this video and the unlisted video March 11th 90 archive.tar, as in the unlisted video we see this image, which very closely resembles this room in the informational video. While it is slightly different, it does tell us that this room discovered by the cameraman was built by Async. The next video uploaded, titled Backrooms Autopsy Report, is a rather short one that contains lots of human speech that has been subtitled, something that this series does not contain a lot of, and for that reason, I'm going to let the majority of this video play out and then I'll talk about it afterwards. This is Backrooms Autopsy Report.
Subject is male, somewhere between 18 and 21 years old. I estimate that the time of death was around 5 days ago, but due to the severe tissue damage, it's hard to say for sure. cause of death was likely malnutrition. I was able to recover most of the digestive tract. So, as things start to deviate from what we would consider to be natural, the decomposition process appears to have been stunted somehow. It's like portions of the body stopped decaying and were sustained. Other areas, however, were completely overtaken by culture. So I took a couple samples of some of the material here. At first, I thought it was an aggregated collection of Pseudomonas fluorescens, but it seems to be closer to a mutated strain of simple hay bacillus, which it should be completely benign, but, well, really, I don't know what to make of this. Mr. Beck, may I ask where this subject came from?
This video shows the autopsy report for the body we saw in the previous video. The man talking is the pathologist that carried out the examination, who states that the body has been decomposing in a strange fashion compared to how they usually would. He then says that he doesn't quite know what to make of it, and then proceeds to ask where the body came from. We aren't shown if the pathologist was ever told where the body came from, but it's likely that it was kept a secret in order for the Backrooms to remain private information. We then cut to a shot of a CRT TV that plays a video containing many images that we are familiar with, such as a photo of the body itself, and then the TV shows footage of the entrance to the Backrooms before the video cuts out. The next video, Backrooms Motion Detected, takes place only 5 days after the informational video does, on the 5th of March 1990. The video begins by showing an image of the entrance followed by more footage of people working inside the Backrooms. Here it looks like they are building something, possibly renovating and testing their idea of using the Backrooms for storage and housing purposes. Text then appears on screen that reads, 7 modified video cameras are optimally positioned along lateral division A. Each camera has been modified to send out an alert and begin recording when motion or substantial noise is detected. We are then shown a diagram of how this is being performed. These cameras have been set up to detect movement or sound, likely in order to catch video of whatever it was that killed that human, because at this time, Async were yet to encounter any real creatures in the Backrooms. Then, more text appears that reads, the following is a compilation of all detected motion alerts received during the night of Monday, March the 5th. The first detection occurred at 7:39 PM, as 3 researchers passed Central Division D, which is obviously nothing out of the ordinary. Then at 8:26, the same researchers returned past Central Division D as expected. Nothing to be concerned about. Then at 9 PM, more motion is detected as a supervisor passes camera 6. Then at 9:15, our first sound detection occurs as the threshold barrier is closed. Then at 1 AM, we get our second sound detection. Afterwards, at 2:15, there is constant noise detection caused by a microphone failure. The first time I watched this, a friend pointed out to me that this microphone failure is likely caused by electromagnetic interference, which is something that we'll hear more about throughout the series. Then at 3:53 AM, more motion was detected, but this time, they may have caught exactly what they were looking for. The camera had picked up on something peeking around the corner in the far distance. We are then shown an upscaled version of this footage. The creature that has been captured here looks quite different to the one we saw in the found footage video. While the one we saw in that video had long limbs that were very stiff, this creature was quite the opposite, with wavy, almost tentacle-like features as it slowly creeps around the corner. The video then ends, and the next one, titled Backrooms Prototype, is a very short one. This video takes place in 1982, 6 years before the Backrooms were initially opened by Async. We are then told that the following experiment took place at Oak Ridge National Laboratory and was conducted on the 10th of May. We are then shown what looks like very early tests that took place in hopes to open gateways to other dimensions. The technology shown may be an early version of what we saw in the tests conducted by Async in the following years, and if you look closely, there's a small ball in the middle. We then see a huge beam of light appearing in the center, which is held for a few seconds before it fades out, and as the beam disappears, you will notice that the ball did too. This may be humans' first realization that objects could be transported to other dimensions. However, at the time, they wouldn't have known where they were being transported to. The camera then slowly zooms back until the video ends. The videos that were then posted over the next 4 months are a lot longer than we're used to, the next one being Backrooms Pitfalls, that's an entire 14 minutes in length, and is probably one of the most interesting videos yet. So let's dive in. Backrooms Pitfalls begins with the Async logo, telling us that this is another video made by the company. Then we see the text May 6, 1990, documented by Marvin E. Lee, before cutting to handheld video recording as our cameraman enters a room containing the uniforms that we see the researchers wearing throughout the series. The video cuts and we see what appears to be 2 researchers beginning to change into the uniforms. Once finished, the cameraman shows a restricted access sign followed by recording of the researchers walking through the entrance. That's when the camera turns, to which we see the silhouette of a human standing above the researchers, staring down. The way this character is portrayed immediately shows that they are of some importance, and I think I may just know who this is. In the video Backrooms the Third Test, there is mention of an Async worker by the name of Ivan Beck. And this isn't the only time the name appears. We also hear it during the Autopsy Report when the pathologist says the words, "Mr. Beck, may I ask where this subject came from?" This tells us that this Ivan Beck character is most definitely a higher up at Async, possibly even the person who is overlooking the entire investigation, which is why I believe this silhouette is Ivan himself, and we may see more of him later. The researchers then enter the Backrooms and we see that they are now fully renovated the first room, possibly to prevent unknown entities from escaping into our reality. We then see researchers walking around the Backrooms as they are having a conversation.
Has the vertical expansion been approved yet?
They're not getting to that until after the presentation.
When does that go through?
Sorry, can you repeat?
What day will the tour be over?
From the 7th to the 10th.
We then see one of the researchers walking alone while still talking to the others through radios. Then we're back with all the researchers walking together, which is when they discover a strange room with a square grid of holes and a door at the end, possibly leading to a new level of the Backrooms. A small conversation happens, and one researcher decides to see what's through the door, and after reaching the other side, the door is opened and we see a bright light on the other side. And the researcher who entered the room tells the crew to bring the camera over there and to hurry, likely because there is something very interesting on the other side. The cameraman seems worried about making his way to the other side, and as he begins doing so, the video glitches and text appears for a frame reading, "While data could be inferred from these readings, nobody knew what would actually be found on the other side." Then, as the researcher continues walking, this happens.
Can you watch it?
As we just saw, the cameraman fell into what looks like a similar area to the last, however the wallpaper is different, and we heard over the radio that the researcher who entered the room through the door desperately wants to record what he's looking at, however he'll have to wait for the cameraman to return. And I believe the best way to understand what happens next in the video is to experience it firsthand. So I'll let the next few minutes play out, whilst doing my best to subtitle the dialogue. Here's the next bit of footage.
It's different. Like a room. there, but the architecture's the same, but the wallpaper is different. It's a bit greener.
Okay, just stand by and stay put for a moment.
Got it.
Do we have another camera? I need to get this. It has to wait. This takes precedence.
Just throw down the guideline with the weight attached. I can use it to climb up.
Just tried that. There won't be enough length to reach you. Hang in there, Marv.
What was that?
What was what?
I don't know.
I didn't hear anything up here.
Sounded like... I think there's somebody down here.
What?
I hear yelling. Like, a person is yelling.
What, a person?
Yeah.
That makes no sense. Are you sure you're not just hearing us?
No, it's definitely not from you. What? Are those streetlights?
Streetlights.
You need to stay at the hole. George will be back any minute, then we can assess the situation from there.
Shh. But what if Miller's right about the null zones?
Even if that's the case, I agree with Mark. It's not worth the risk. Marvin, do you copy?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Marv, what are you doing?
I'm trying to find them. I know how to get back. It's fine.
Keep us posted.
You see them?
Hello? Can you hear me? One of the houses. I can see where the yelling's coming from. Okay. This is odd. There are inverted turn signs in this room, coming out of the carpet.
They're inverted? What do you mean by that?
Mirrored. They're not oriented properly. I think I'm losing you. Just stand by.
Marvin, 403, do you copy? Repeat, Marvin, do you copy?
This is Marv.
Okay.
I think someone's been living down here.
Living down there? That's not possible.
Hey! Can you hear me? I think I found him.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Marvin?
That's not a person.
What is it?
That is not a fucking person!
What? Marvin, talk to me. What do you see? What's going on?
Okay, I'm here. Send it down.
Okay. Stand clear. We're sending it down.
The video then ends right there. It's not shown as to whether the cameraman escapes, but it's likely he did, given that all he had to do from there was climb up. This video is perhaps the most important one so far, as in the videos prior, the async researchers had mainly stayed at one level throughout their entire recorded time in the Backrooms, not including the very small dark area with the barn and the wheelbarrows. But by May 6th of 1990, they had now discovered not 2, but possibly 3 new levels to the Backrooms, those levels being the slightly darker green area, the outside area, and an unknown area that we can vaguely see through the open door. the outside level containing another entity similar to the one we see in the found footage clips. These entities have for a while been referred to as bacteria, a name that I will use for them going forward. This is also Async's first one-on-one interaction with bacteria, the researcher originally believing that it was a human before getting close to it. We also hear the researchers talking about some sort of presentation, which we'll hear more about in an upcoming video. And we also learn the name of the researcher who holds the camera in this video, his name being Marvin, or Marv as he is often called. But until we delve deeper into the meaning of this series and the theories surrounding it, let's move on to the next video, titled Backrooms Report. This video is the first to contain real actors, and it's really important to watch just what they're doing, as they take the footage that was recorded on the 6th of May, and they try and piece together just what's going on in the backrooms. It begins with footage of a CRT TV as a man stares directly at it. We also see a researcher entering an elevator within the Async facility. Then another man is seen in the same room as the TV as they begin to watch the footage from the previous video. We also know from the description that these people are reviewing the footage on the same day that the incident occurred, May 6th, 1990. Then we see the researcher exiting the elevator, followed by more examination of the incident. The two men are beginning to watch the lead up to when the bacteria was alerted. One of the researchers looking terrified once he sees the entity on screen. We then see the footage being rewound in order for the men to get a better look at the bacteria, an image that really shocks them. We then see the other researcher roaming around the building after exiting the elevator, then walking up to a phone and beginning to speak. The speech is inaudible though, and we're unsure as to what the conversation was about. But given the context, it was likely about the company's new discovery. Then we transition to a slideshow of images showing several rooms within the complex, one of which has been boarded up with wood. Then we see video of builders within the backrooms closing off the windows of the research area. The video then fades to black and ends right there. In the description of this video we find a link to an unlisted one posted by Kane. The video begins with footage of cars driving down a motorway. Then the camera begins to zoom in on the right hand side of the video, to which we see a car clip into the floor. The idea of this is absolutely terrifying. Knowing that even cars can enter the backrooms accidentally is very unsettling, and we'll see more about different objects entering the backrooms in later videos. The next video, titled Backrooms Presentation, takes place 2 days after the previous ones, on the 8th of May 1990. The video begins with an FBI warning stating that federal law provides severe civil and criminal penalties for the unauthorized reproduction, distribution or exhibition of the following tape. We then cut to recording from the inside of a room where we see a projection of the Async logo followed by the title of the upcoming presentation, titled A-Space Prospective Development. There is also some text in the bottom left that I believe reads internal use only. However, it's quite difficult to read. We then fade to footage of the presentation itself. A voice is heard in the video that begins talking about the many changes that the world has seen over the last few decades, then telling us about the many downsides to these changes that can have irreversible negative effects on the Earth, such as pollution. The voice then goes on to say that the Async Corporation believe that they have the solution for all of these problems. that solution being the Low Proximity Magnetic Distortion System, which is basically another title for the Backrooms. The voice then goes on to explain the system. However, when doing so, we see that a lot of the explanation has been censored for unknown reasons. The video then glitches and cuts to a later part in the presentation. And although it seems like this glitch was completely unintentional, the blurred out text leads me to believe that Async removed this part of the video on purpose. Perhaps they changed their mind about giving the public the information about how the Backrooms came to be, or maybe they changed their mind about distributing the presentation altogether. We are then shown Async's plan to use the Backrooms for good, explaining that cargo as well as people will be able to enter the Backrooms with ease, and that soon the threshold will be expanded to suit large vehicles to make transportation into the complex easier. But then the video glitches and cuts to footage from a security camera. The music stops at this point and the footage remains for a few seconds before cutting back. But this part of the video is incredibly confusing. It seems that this footage wasn't meant to be placed in this video, which is why it occurs out of nowhere and contains no context. The only information we can gather from this video being that the security camera footage takes place at 37 minutes past 4 on an unknown date. The video then cuts back to the presentation, to which the voice says that using the Backrooms for storage will be much cheaper than other storage methods, and that there is much more space available in the Backrooms than there is in our world. The data that represents the Backrooms being so large that it goes off screen, which is actually terrifying. The video then glitches and cuts again to more footage from a security camera, once again showing 3 people walking down a corridor, the footage taking place 12 minutes after the previous clip. The video also zooms in on these unknown people as if they are really important. Maybe we'll find out who these people are, but for now, we are unsure. The presentation then resumes, to which we are shown the many uses for the infinite rooms, such as industrial processing, storage and warehousing, commercial space, and residential uses. Afterwards, the video cuts to handheld footage of a man walking in an area similar to the one we see in the security camera footage. The cameraman then looks around before we return to the presentation once again. We are shown examples of what houses could look like within the Backrooms. Then the video glitches, showing an image of what looks like an async research room followed by some backwards text that when flipped reads, "To deceive the FEDE." Although half of the sentence has been cut off, one commenter pointed out that it's possible that the full message reads, "To deceive the federal government," which seems plausible, and would give what Async's doing a much darker meaning to what we're familiar with. It wouldn't surprise me if something was going on behind the scenes that proves that Async are a questionable company. We do already know that they caused the disappearance of thousands of innocent citizens, regardless of whether it was a mistake or not, so this theory sounds believable. We then cut to footage from inside the research room we just saw, and we also see text reading, "Doe Tape Archive." We are familiar with the name Doe in this series, as John Doe is the name of the person that was found dead in the Backrooms. We know this because at the beginning of the video Autopsy Report, we see the text, "John Doe Autopsy Report." So it's possible that the archive tapes that we are viewing now were recorded on the same day that the body was found, which would explain why they are titled Doe Tape Archive. We then see 3 people looking down towards the complex, the same 3 people that we saw in the security camera footage earlier in this video. The video then cuts and we see the closing of one of the research rooms as well as the complex, followed by footage from the inside of this familiar area. That's when an alarm begins going off, to which we see the camera zoom in on the 2 researchers as one of their co-workers runs over to them. And then, we see this. And that's how the video ends. In case you don't remember, this is footage of the Async employee that got lost in the Backrooms and upon returning to the safe area, caused the alarm to go off as the complex had already been closed. I'll talk more about this clip when discussing theories surrounding this series, but before I'm able to explain it, We must talk about the remaining videos, starting with an unlisted one that can be found in the description of presentation.
Hey, yeah, who are you? I saw you chasing Bart's ambulance.
Hutz is the name, Mr. Simpson. Lionel Hutz, attorney at law. Here's my car.
The video begins showing us an old recording of an episode of The Simpsons, just like how you'd see clips of animated shows around YouTube. That is until the recording becomes distorted, eventually glitching to the point where it cuts to a blue screen, followed by recording of what seems to be an advertisement. The recording continues to distort, however, eventually cutting back to which the episode resumes before the video ends. This video is unlike all of the others we've seen prior to this, as it was not uploaded by the official Kane Pixels channel, instead being uploaded by an account by the name of Laura Harris. The clip of The Simpsons that we see in this short video is from the second season episode Bart Gets Hit by a Car, which originally aired on the 10th of January 1991, which fits well within the timeline of the Backrooms. However, the video that we cut to during the distortion is a Spanish advertisement from the 2000s. My initial belief was that this interference and time jump occurred as a result of the threshold being opened by async, but since this episode of The Simpsons first aired 2 years after the opening of the Backrooms, I think it's entirely possible that in 1991, async attempted to expand the threshold much like how they explained they would in the presentation, in order to allow large cargo to enter the Backrooms easier. And this attempt to expand the threshold caused a temporary time jump and interference during the airing of the episode. However, the theories for what caused this are up for debate, and we are yet to have all the information regarding the timeline, so it's entirely possible that this could have been something else. But now we need to discuss the newest videos posted in the Backrooms series, starting with the first one, titled Backrooms, Found Footage 2. The video begins with a new character, supposedly a teenage girl, who has discovered something very strange within her garage. She sets the camera down, to which we see blue tape on the floor in the shape of a square. She then takes some wood chips and throws them into the square, to which they vanish. She then shows this off with other objects and is unable to explain what is happening. That's when she decides to put a measuring tape into the floor to see how far it goes down. That's when the tape measure begins to shake and the camera falls into the floor, and she is transported to the Backrooms, along with the many objects she was using as tests. She then stands up and looks around before beginning to walk through the many rooms. A lot of this video is similar to the first found footage video, in which a character spends a lot of time walking. But what's different in this video is that the character behind the camera discovers a strange amount of furniture in the rooms they come across, including parts of a kitchen, a disproportional set of tables and chairs, and a sofa sat alone in the middle of a large room. In the description of this video, we are told that this footage is from, or was recovered in 1995, 5 years after Async's presentation, in which they explained that the Backrooms would be used for housing purposes. So it's possible that these lone pieces of furniture were results of Async's attempt to create fully furnished rooms within the complex. Either that, or it's something much different that we'll get onto later. She then finds a hole in the floor as well as a wooden door, and while attempting to record the other side of the door through the keyhole, we see a much brighter area at the top of a small staircase. The video then cuts to which she begins walking again, discovering more strange areas, one of which has a broken ceiling, which you can almost look out of. And that's when she discovers a very intriguing room with an interesting looking object at the end of it. That's when she walks closer to discover that it is a car that has managed to clip into the complex and crash into one of the walls. Now, it's entirely possible that this is the same car from the unlisted video we looked at earlier, but even if it isn't, this view of a car after crashing into the walls of the complex is horrifying. The video then cuts to which the girl walks into a room which has a bloody handprint on the outside wall, as well as smeared blood all across the wooden floor. This tells us that the person that crashed the car likely survived and got out to enter this room. She then carries on towards a dark area and turns on a light that has a strange green tint to it. Then after walking around, she discovers this room with what looks like vines spreading across the walls, the only other noticeable thing in this room being a portrait of a woman hanging on the wall. She stares at the painting for a few seconds until a noise is heard, to which she turns to see the plant moving. That's when we notice that this is actually living bacteria that begins walking toward her, to which she runs away. She attempts to hide behind walls, but every time she thinks she's safe, the bacteria catches up with her. That's when she comes across the hole in the floor we saw earlier and jumps down it, leading her to another area with a green tint, followed by a room containing what looks like swimming pools. She is then caught up by the bacteria, causing her to climb up a ladder and continue running. She then finds what looks like a good hiding spot, just to realize that it is a dead end. And that's when this happens. The camera then loses signal and we are shown a television inside of a home that is playing back the video, meaning that somehow this footage found itself back on Earth, to which someone discovered it in 1995 and is watching it in their home. We then hear the beginning of a song and the video ends. We are now coming up to the end of the series with only 2 videos left. The first one being an unlisted video that can be found in the description of Found Footage 2, titled Home 27647.mov, which we'll take a look at now. The video begins with upbeat music and seems to be a homemade video created by an unknown person, and for the majority of this video it seems to be completely normal. It just displays a ton of footage taken within a city in the United States as indicated by the American flags we see. And throughout the whole 3-minute film there are only a few things that seem out of the ordinary. The first of which being what looks like an ancient drawing of some sort, and one commenter after seeing this tried to find out what the image was, and after doing some digging they discovered that this was an ancient map of the universe titled Planispherium Ptolemaicaum, which translates to Celestial Plane, and was created around the 1660s. And while this doesn't seem to mean anything right now, I wouldn't be surprised if theorists were able to place this into the story somewhere as the series develops over the coming months. The next thing I saw in this video that I believed fell out of place was this. It's not very easy to make out, but if you look just above the ocean, we can see what seems to be a drawing which to me resembles the face of a person. I tried to reverse image search the drawing to see if I could find anything, but nothing really popped out to me. What's also interesting is that when the drawing appears, the VHS begins to glitch, and stops right as the face disappears. The video then continues like normal and also displays a slideshow of images, the first being of the inside of a house, and the second image being a rather strange one, which looks quite similar to the entrance async made for the complex, a bright light in the shape of a door at the end of a room. We then begin to see images of people who have had their faces censored in post, similarly to how people's faces were censored in old videos such as the March 11th 1990 archive video. But if you look at this image closely, you'll realize something else. Pay close attention to the room itself that these 2 people are seen in, and then compare it to this room that we see in Found Footage 2. That's when you'll realize that these rooms are the exact same down to every detail minus the furniture. But it gets even more strange when in the home video we see this image, which looks very similar to the room in Found Footage 2 that is owned by the bacteria. But if this isn't convincing enough, we are then shown this image. The video then fades out and ends, and if you haven't picked up on it by now, this home video shows us many images from the inside of a house which has been fully replicated inside the Backrooms. But this one-to-one recreation of a house is not a man-made creation. You could argue that Async planned to renovate the Backrooms, however they only planned on adding furniture to already existing rooms. They never planned on creating the rooms themselves, which means that this house must have been created by something else, and I believe that it links to the car crash we see in Found Footage 2, and more importantly, the person inside of that car. And I'll do my best to explain it right now. So, in the final image in the home video we see 3 people. These people are in their house on Earth somewhere within the United States. And one day, one of these 3 people were driving their car on a motorway until suddenly they clipped into the floor, ending up in the backrooms, immediately crashing into one of the walls of the complex. Then, in an attempt to stay alive, this person exited the car, clearly harmed and bleeding onto the floor. They then continued walking until they reached a room, and while standing in that room, the walls became infested with green lights in the shape of vines, resulting in the remodeling and one-to-one recreation of that person's house within the backrooms, which is also what I believe happened to the girl at the end of found footage 2. I believe that the backrooms is a generation of rooms that expands rapidly and attempts to recreate Earth. However, it doesn't do the best job at recreating our world, resulting in backward signs appearing all over the outside area. It's almost like when an AI attempts to recreate something with little information. It knows what it needs, houses, road signs and furniture, yet it doesn't know where to place these, resulting in a complete mess. That's why the backroom starts out with just corridors, and the more levels they create, the smarter it becomes. It first learns how to create rooms, then it learns to put furniture and other objects into these rooms, and so on. It's just like a computer algorithm, constantly learning and teaching itself to improve through trial and error. And whenever a human enters the backrooms, it uses the knowledge these people have to recreate things from their memory, including their own homes. It uses these people to accurately recreate rooms on a one-to-one scale. And I believe that these entities that we see throughout the backrooms that I have been referring to as bacteria are responsible for the recreation of these rooms. But I'll explain that side of my theory more once we watch the final video in the series so far, titled I Remember, which I'll play to you now.
I had a home once, a manor overlooking the sea. Upon the world was a vestige, calling forward onto strangled ears. But when skies turned dark, the house was taken by the sea. A pillar truncated, cast down to the seabed with all the other forgotten things. But I remember. Fleeting shells sinking ever slowly, folding downwards into themselves, forever tearing along the seams of the sky, until nothing remains except the eternal ghost. And you ask yourself, could there ever be anything greater than this? You have always been here.
In this video, a poem is being read out by a voice, and if you listen to the words closely, it's clear that the voice is talking about the backrooms. I had a home once, a manor overlooking the sea. Upon the world, this was a vestige, calling forward onto strangled ears. But when the skies turned dark, the house was taken by the sea. The voice mentions a house that was taken by the sea being a symbol for the backrooms. This tells us that our theory of people's homes on Earth being recreated in the backrooms is on the right track. And although we don't know whose voice this is, the poem being titled I Remember tells us that it is possible that this person has had the same thing happen to them. They entered the backrooms and had their home taken by the sea. However, they somehow lived to tell the tale. I believe that the person we're hearing is someone who managed to escape the backrooms, and if that's true, this is the first case we have where someone has found themselves stuck within the complex, yet has managed to find a way out. And the final lines of the poem include the words, and you ask yourself, Could there ever be anything greater than this? This person is directing this statement at Async, who attempt to portray the Backrooms as a good thing. They believe that the complex is this great discovery that they can profit from. However, he thinks otherwise. And what I find interesting throughout this video is that we see this mirrored filter overlaid on a lot of the recording. This could be telling us that the Backrooms are attempting to mirror our world to the best of their ability, which supports our current theory. And the video ends with the phrase, "It has always been there." And that's where the series ends as of now. However, we still have so much to answer, so let's discuss the many things that have yet to be solved as we attempt to link this story together, starting with time. Throughout this entire series, there are many instances in which time does not make much sense, and there are many time jumps that occur throughout the many videos. The first one appearing at the very beginning of the story when we see these kids creating a film. Here we see the director hold up a clapperboard where the date is written down as the 4th of July 1991, which already doesn't line up with the date we see in the description of the video, which is marked as the 23rd of September 1996. This isn't the only instance in which there is a time jump in the story. The next one takes place in Informational video, when in February of 1990, the cameraman tries to signal the other researchers, to which they disappear. And we see our cameraman return to the research room in the presentation video, which takes place in May of 1990, more than 2 months after the researchers went out to explore. And if you remember anything about Informational video, you'll remember me saying that the events in the video took place on the 29th of February 1990, which is impossible as 1990 was not a leap year. And you may also remember the time jump that occurred in the video Simpsons, as a mid-2000s commercial played in the middle of a 1990s episode of the show. So clearly, something strange has been happening with time ever since Async opened the complex. And it seems that every time they mess with the complex, whether it be from opening it, closing it, or just interacting with it in general, that the time jumps become more severe. The first time jump that occurs in the timeline caused the researcher to skip just a few months, but then the later time jump that occurs in the original found footage video causes the cameraman to skip 5 whole years. And if we're looking into the time jump that happened in the Simpsons video, then that jump would have been well over a decade. So it seems that whenever a jump occurs in the timeline, the amount of time that passes gets longer and longer, which could be a result of Async messing with the complex too much. And if they were to continue doing this, it could have some serious consequences. But that's something we won't know until more videos are released in the series. The next theory I want to discuss is to do with the bacteria. My question being, what are the bacteria? Because if you look at them in the videos, they do somewhat resemble humans. They have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, and their body is structured like a person. However, the proportions are very different and show no real consistency. But one clip that is important when discussing bacteria is this one from Pitfalls. Marvin, the researcher, is originally drawn towards the bacteria as he believes it is a person, because if you listen closely, you can make out what sounds like human speech, or at least an attempt to mimic it. And this is exactly why I believe that each bacteria was once a human. Throughout Async's exploration of the Backrooms, we often hear the researchers coughing, including Marv at the end of Pitfalls. And what if this coughing is the result of a deadly virus within the complex that is infecting the missing humans and turning them into bacteria? We don't see this too much with the researchers as they are all wearing hazmat suits and are possibly protected against the virus, but when someone enters the Backrooms unprotected, it's a problem. And an example of a human becoming infected with the virus is John Doe, the person that Async discovered dead within the complex. I believe that John was infected with this virus and was in the process of becoming bacteria, but before he was able to transform into this being, he died within the Backrooms. This would explain the strange result of the autopsy report, as the pathologist was unsure what to make of his body due to the severe tissue damage as well as the unnatural decomposition process. He was infected with a disease that humans haven't seen before, but if John Doe didn't die, he would have become bacteria, which is why all of the entities are able to mimic human speech, because they themselves are or were once part human. But just like every theory, we'll always be unsure until the series is over. And if you count the theory I mentioned earlier about the bacteria using humans to recreate Earth within the complex, then that pretty much concludes everything I have to say about the Backrooms. The series, however, isn't over, and Kane has already begun posting teasers for what's to come over the following months. But until then, that's pretty much it. And once there's more to cover, I may make another video about the series, but that won't be for quite a while. So until then, this has been Kane Pixels Backrooms. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all later.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It would be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage, but you look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two.